The cold vacuum of space held its breath as the Zorn Collective's world ships materialized from hyperspace, their biometallic hulls glistening with the reflections of distant stars. Admiral Krelak stood on the command deck of the flagship Sovereign Dominance, his six-fingered hands clasped behind a back lined with iridescent exoskeletal armor. Holographic displays flickered around him, parsing data about the unremarkable solar system that would soon become another footnote in the Zorn's millennia-long conquest. Earth appeared as a small blue-green dot, almost an afterthought in the vast galactic map. Krelak's secondary visual receptor, a cybernetic implant that could detect molecular-level details, swept across the planet's surface. Initial scans suggested a primitive civilization, barely capable of exploring its own moon. Another easy acquisition for the collective. What Krelak didn't know was that humanity had been watching, waiting, and preparing far longer than the Zorn could imagine. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the North American Integrated Defense Command hummed with a quiet intensity that bordered on predatory anticipation. Colonel Emily Hartley stood before a massive curved display that stretched nearly 30 meters wide, her posture rigid but not tense. Years of military training and classified research had prepared her for this moment. Incoming quantum encrypted transmission from forward observation platforms, announced Lieutenant Michael Rodriguez, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface. Initial Zorn fleet composition confirmed. 63 primary world ships, 217 support vessels. Emily's lips curved into the barest hint of a smile. Interesting. The underground facility was a marvel of human engineering, designed to withstand multiple simultaneous planetary scale attacks. Layers of advanced materials, quantum-locked ceramics, adaptive nano-reinforced structures, and energy dispersal fields protected what was arguably humanity's most critical strategic command center. Dr. Catherine Bennett, the lead sinological analyst, approached with a tablet displaying intricate dimensional projections. Her glasses reflected complex data streams that would look like incomprehensible chaos to an untrained eye. Their approach vector suggests a standard Imperial expansion protocol, she said, her voice calm and clinical. They're treating us exactly like every other civilization they've encountered. A fatal mistake. The team around Emily represented the pinnacle of human interdisciplinary collaboration. Military strategists worked alongside quantum physicists, xenolinguists collaborated with cybernetic engineers, and behavioral psychologists analyzed potential alien communication strategies. Each member had been selected not just for their exceptional individual skills, but for their ability to think beyond conventional boundaries. Active camouflage systems are holding, reported Senior Technical Specialist David Chen, monitoring the stealth satellites strategically positioned throughout the solar system. These weren't ordinary satellites. They were adaptive, quantum-linked observation platforms that could blend perfectly with cosmic background radiation, rendering them essentially invisible to even the most advanced scanning technologies. Emily walked to a secondary display showing global preparedness levels. Massive underground cities were now fully activated, their defensive systems primed. Orbital defense platforms, disguised as mundane communication and research satellites, were locked and ready. Entire continents had been subtly prepared over decades, with infrastructure designed to transform into defensive networks at a moment's notice. "They think we're a young species," Emily murmured, more to herself than to anyone else in the room. "They have no idea." The Zorn Collective had conquered hundreds of civilizations, each conquest following a predictable pattern. Initial reconnaissance, diplomatic ultimatum, overwhelming force. They approached humanity expecting the same submissive response they'd received countless times before. They were about to learn a very different lesson. Outside the Mountain Command Center, the world continued its ordinary rhythm. Cities bustled, people worked, children played, completely unaware that first contact was imminent. But beneath this calm surface, humanity was a coiled spring, decades of preparation ready to be unleashed. "Transmission incoming," Michael Rodriguez announced, his voice steady. The Zorn are initiating first contact protocols. Colonel Emily Hartley's eyes reflected a combination of calculated strategy and something deeper, a protective instinct that had defined human survival throughout its tumultuous history. "Let's show them who they're dealing with," she said quietly. The stage was set. The players were ready, and humanity was about to rewrite the rules of galactic engagement. The communication chamber was a study in controlled chaos. Captain Jack Rodriguez stood at the center of a circular room lined with advanced quantum communication arrays, each humming with potential energy. Surrounding him were the most brilliant minds humanity could assemble: linguistic experts, psychological warfare specialists, historians, and communication theorists. Dr. Elena Martinez, the lead xenolinguistic expert, adjusted her neural interface headset. Holographic language matrices danced around her, breaking down the Zorn transmission into its most fundamental components. "Their communication structure is hierarchical," she explained, her fingers tracing complex linguistic patterns. "They expect absolute submission. It's not just a request. It's a demand coded into their cultural DNA." Jack nodded, his military background perfectly complemented by a deep understanding of human potential. The Zorn transmission played on a massive screen, a cold, calculated demand for humanity's unconditional surrender. Their message was a masterpiece of imperial arrogance, listing hundreds of civilizations that had fallen before them, detailing the futility of resistance. "We're going to turn their message into our weapon," Jack said quietly. The response would be carefully crafted, a communication that would do more than just reject the Zorn's demands. It would become a psychological profile of humanity itself, a warning that would echo through the galaxy. Dr. Robert Harrison, the team's lead historical analyst, began compiling a visual and narrative overview of human history. But this was no sanitized documentary. This was a raw, unfiltered look at humanity's most defining moments: the brutality, the resilience, the unprecedented capacity for both destruction and creation. The first segment focused on warfare. Images of global conflicts flickered across the screens: World War I trenches, World War I battle scenes, modern asymmetric warfare. But these weren't just scenes of violence. Each image was carefully selected to show human adaptability, technological innovation, and the ability to transform conflict into progression. A sequence from the Pacific theater of World War I showed American soldiers fighting against seemingly insurmountable odds. Next, footage from the Korean War demonstrated technological adaptation. Then came images from the Middle Eastern conflicts, highlighting precision warfare and rapid strategic shifts. "We're not just showing our capacity for violence," Dr. Harrison explained. "We're demonstrating our ability to evolve, to learn, to transform challenges into opportunities." Dr. Catherine Bennett began integrating scientific achievements into the narrative. Clips of the Manhattan Project transitioned into images of nuclear power plants and medical radiation treatments. Space exploration footage showed humanity's leap from Earth-bound species to interplanetary explorers. Each image was a testament to human potential, the ability to turn destructive knowledge into constructive solutions. Jack watched as the communication took shape. It wasn't just a rejection of the Zorn's demands. It was a comprehensive psychological profile that would make any potential invader reconsider their approach. Climate change adaptation sequences followed. Images of massive geoengineering projects, sustainable city designs, and technological solutions to environmental challenges painted a picture of a species that could fundamentally reshape its own environment. Automated vertical farms, ocean cleanup technologies, and atmospheric carbon reduction systems scrolled across the screens. "They need to understand we're not just survivors," Dr. Martinez said. "We're architects of our own destiny." The technological progression was equally impressive. From the first computational machines to quantum computing, from rudimentary flight to interplanetary exploration, each technological leap demonstrated humanity's exponential growth potential. The sequence concluded with emerging technologies: neural interfaces, advanced robotics, and experimental faster-than-light communication prototypes. Lieutenant Michael Rodriguez managed the technical aspects of the transmission. Quantum encryption layers would ensure the message couldn't be altered or misinterpreted. Multiple communication channels were prepared: radio waves, quantum entanglement links, and even old-fashioned optical transmissions. "We're giving them exactly what they asked for," Jack said, a hint of a smile crossing his face. Full disclosure. The final cut was a masterpiece of strategic communication. Not a plea, not a threat, but a comprehensive statement of human capability. The message was clear. Humanity was not a civilization to be conquered, but a force to be understood and respected. As the transmission prepared to launch, the room fell silent. Each team member knew they were crafting more than a response. They were sending a message that would define humanity's first impression on the galactic stage. Captain Jack Rodriguez gave the final command: "Transmit." The universe waited, about to receive a message unlike any it had ever seen before. The research complex nestled in the New Mexico desert looked deceptively ordinary from the outside. A series of low-rise buildings surrounded by seemingly mundane solar arrays and communication towers betrayed nothing of the groundbreaking work happening within. Dr. Amanda Williams adjusted her quantum-linked neural interface, her fingers dancing across a holographic display that seemed to breathe with living information. "Prepare initial technological demonstration package," she commanded, her voice calm and measured. Around her, a team of the world's most brilliant interdisciplinary researchers worked with an intensity that bordered on collective meditation. Each member understood the delicate game they were about to play, revealing just enough to intrigue the Zorn, without exposing humanity's full technological capabilities. The first transmission would focus on quantum communication technologies. Dr. Marcus Chen, a quantum physics specialist, had developed a communication system that made the Zorn's most advanced encryption look like children's secret codes. Quantum entanglement networks that could transmit information instantaneously across impossible distances, with encryption so complex it would take centuries to crack. "We're not just showing them a technology," Dr. Chen explained to his colleagues. "We're giving them a glimpse of a fundamental reimagining of information transfer." Holographic simulations began to take shape. Complex mathematical models danced in the air, showing how quantum communication could bypass traditional limitations of signal strength, distance, and security. The Zorn's communication technologies would appear primitive by comparison, a deliberate psychological strategy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a specialist in adaptive nanotechnologies, prepared the next segment. Her team had developed nano-adaptive warfare systems that could transform entire environments into defensive platforms. Microscopic machines capable of restructuring matter at the molecular level, creating defensive barriers, or dismantling enemy technologies with surgical precision. A video demonstration showed a barren landscape suddenly coming alive with defensive structures. Sand transformed into crystalline barriers, rocks reshaping themselves into complex defensive networks. It was equal parts beautiful and terrifying, a visual representation of humanity's ability to turn any environment into a weapon. "Notice how we're not just showing destruction," Dr. Rodriguez said to her team. "We're demonstrating adaptability, potential, transformation." The ecological reconstruction technologies were perhaps the most impressive. Dr. Catherine Bennett oversaw this portion of the transmission. Humanity had developed methods to terraform entire planetary ecosystems, to heal environmental damage, or to create habitable spaces in the most challenging conditions. Footage showed dead landscapes returning to life, polluted urban areas transforming into green havens, entire desert regions blooming with carefully engineered ecosystems. The message was clear: humanity could destroy, but they could also create. They were not just a species of warriors, but of builders. In the observation room, Colonel Emily Hartley watched the preparations with a critical eye. Every technological breadcrumb was carefully selected, each piece of information a calculated move in a complex strategic game. "We're playing chess," she muttered to Captain Jack Rodriguez, who stood nearby. while they think we're playing checkers. The fusion reactor demonstration was particularly impressive. Dr. Michael Wong had developed a containment and generation system that made current nuclear technologies look like primitive campfires. Compact fusion reactors that could power entire cities with zero carbon emissions and minimal radioactive waste. A simulation showed how these reactors could be deployed, small enough to fit in a shipping container, powerful enough to energize an entire continent. The Zorn would see a technology that could transform entire planetary energy systems, with implications far beyond mere power generation. "We're not just showing them a power source," Dr. Wong explained. "We're showing them a civilization-level technology." The final segment focused on adaptive AI systems. Unlike the rigid, rule-based artificial intelligences the Zorn might be familiar with, humanity's AI was something else entirely. Self-evolving, context-aware systems that could make complex decisions, learn from environments, and adapt with unprecedented speed. A series of scenarios played out. AI systems solving complex ecological challenges, developing medical treatments, optimizing resource distribution. Each demonstration was a subtle reminder that humanity's intelligence was not just about raw computational power, but about creativity, adaptation, and unexpected solutions. As the transmission was prepared, the room held its collective breath. This was more than a technological showcase. This was a message to the universe about what humanity represented, a species of innovators, survivors, and transformative thinkers. Dr. Amanda Williams gave the final command. The technological breadcrumbs were about to be scattered across the galactic communication networks. The Zorn would never see them coming. The research station orbited Jupiter's moon Europa, a seemingly innocuous scientific outpost that appeared vulnerable and isolated. To the Zorn collective, it represented an easy target, a chance to demonstrate their military superiority and crush human resistance before it could truly begin. Major Sarah Donovan watched the incoming Zorn fleet through the station's advanced sensor arrays. Her team of 36 specialists represented the pinnacle of human military and scientific expertise. Each member had been handpicked for this specific scenario, a carefully laid trap that had been decades in the planning. "Zorn Strike Force entering optimal engagement range," announced Lieutenant David Chen, his fingers dancing across a holographic targeting interface. The quantum-linked communication systems hummed with potential energy, every system perfectly synchronized. The Zorn fleet approached with typical Imperial confidence. 67 attack vessels, ranging from small interceptor craft to massive assault ships, spread out in a standard invasion formation. Admiral Krellax's strategic algorithms predicted a complete subjugation of the human outpost within 12 standard minutes. What the Zorn didn't realize was that the entire station was a meticulously designed weapon. "Adaptive camouflage systems at maximum efficiency," reported Dr. Catherine Bennett. The station's exterior began to shimmer, molecular structures realigning to blend perfectly with the surrounding space debris and radiation patterns. To any conventional scanning system, it would appear as nothing more than a collection of random cosmic objects. The first Zorn ships launched their initial reconnaissance drones. These were sophisticated machines designed to penetrate and analyze potential defensive systems. As they approached the station, something unexpected happened. The drones simply ceased to exist. Microscopic defensive networks, nano-adaptive machines, smaller than a human cell, surrounded the incoming drones. These weren't traditional weapons. They were living, thinking, adapting systems that could deconstruct enemy technologies at the molecular level. One moment the drones existed, the next, they were nothing more than dispersed atomic particles. "Primary reconnaissance screen neutralized," David Chen reported, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Major Donovan remained calm, her augmented neural interface providing her with a comprehensive view of the entire engagement space. Every potential Zorn movement was already predicted, every possible counteraction already calculated. The Zorn fleet hesitated. Their initial confidence began to waver. "Autonomous drone swarm, prepare deployment," Donovan commanded. What emerged from the station was nothing like conventional military hardware. These were quantum-linked drone systems with adaptive AI cores. Each drone was more than a simple flying weapon. It was a thinking, learning, strategizing entity. They moved with a collective intelligence that defied traditional combat algorithms. The first wave of Zorn assault ships found themselves confronted by a cloud of metallic constructs that seemed to anticipate their every move. Directed energy weapons fired with impossible precision, quantum-locked targeting systems, making traditional evasion tactics obsolete. Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the nano-adaptive defensive systems. The station itself was transforming, molecular structures realigning to create complex defensive and offensive capabilities. What appeared to be a simple research station was actually a living, breathing weapon system. Energy dissipation fields at maximum, she reported. Any weapon fired by the Zorn would be absorbed, redirected, or completely neutralized before it could cause any damage. The battle, if one could call it that, lasted 17 minutes and 23 seconds. 17 minutes of total, absolute human technological superiority. Not a single human life was lost. When the engagement concluded, only expanding clouds of rapidly cooling debris remained where the Zorn strike force had been. The Jupiter research station remained intact, almost serene, as if nothing had happened. Major Donovan allowed herself the smallest of smiles. "Transmission ready," she said. A quantum-encrypted message was prepared to be sent back to the Zorn Collective. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was a warning. Lieutenant Chen looked up from his console. Message sent. The message was brutally simple. Humanity was not to be underestimated. This was not an invitation to negotiate. This was a demonstration. In the cold vacuum of space, a message had been sent, and the galaxy was about to listen. The Quantum Communication Center stretched across 3 underground levels beneath the Rocky Mountains, a marvel of human engineering that looked more like a cathedral of technology than a traditional military installation. Dr. Elena Martinez stood at the central transmission hub, her fingers hovering over quantum-encrypted communication interfaces that could pierce through any known communication barrier in the galaxy. "Prepare full-spectrum transmission," she commanded, her voice steady and calm. Around her, a team of the world's most brilliant communication specialists worked with an intensity that bordered on religious devotion. Xenolinguists, quantum physicists, psychological warfare experts, and communication theorists had spent months crafting a message that would echo through the galactic community. Captain Jack Rodriguez watched the preparations, understanding that this transmission was more than just a warning to the Zorn. It was a statement to every intelligent civilization watching. The transmission would be sent through multiple channels, quantum entanglement networks that could bypass traditional communication limitations, hyperspatial relay systems, and even old-fashioned radio wave transmissions. Multiple redundancies ensured that no civilization could claim they hadn't received the message. Dr. Marcus Chen, the quantum communication specialist, began loading the comprehensive data package. "We're not just sending a message," he explained to his colleagues. "We're sending a complete psychological profile of humanity." The first layer of the transmission was a visual history, not a sanitized version, but a raw, unfiltered look at human existence. Scenes of conflict and resolution played out in rapid succession. World wars transitioned to peaceful technological innovations. Images of environmental destruction gave way to massive restoration projects. Military conflicts dissolved into diplomatic breakthroughs. "Watch the progression," Dr. Catherine Bennett noted. "We're showing them our capacity for both destruction and creation." Detailed simulations followed, mathematical models showing potential human responses to various invasion scenarios. These weren't simple tactical projections. They were comprehensive war game simulations that demonstrated humanity's ability to adapt, predict, and counter any potential threat with terrifying efficiency. The mathematical models were works of art, complex algorithms that showed not just potential battle strategies, but the psychological and economic implications of potential conflicts. Each simulation ended the same way, with the complete neutralization of any potential invading force. We're giving them a roadmap of their own potential destruction, Dr. Rodriguez remarked dryly. Lieutenant David Chen managed the transmission's technical aspects. Quantum encryption layers would ensure the message couldn't be altered or misinterpreted. Multiple communication channels were prepared: radio waves, quantum entanglement links, and even old-fashioned optical transmissions. The psychological warfare aspect was carefully crafted. The message wasn't a threat. It was a promise. "We do not seek conflict," the transmission began, voiced by a calm, almost disinterested narrator. "But we will end it absolutely if provoked." Attached was a compressed data package that showed simulated warfare scenarios so devastating that entire alien civilizations would find themselves involuntarily shuddering. Planetary defense systems that could transform entire star systems into impenetrable fortresses. Adaptive technologies that could turn any environment into a weapon. Colonel Emily Hartley reviewed the final transmission, her augmented neural interface providing her with a comprehensive view of every potential communication nuance. "Make sure the message is clear," she instructed. "We're not asking for permission. We're stating a fact." The transmission included carefully selected technological demonstrations, quantum communication networks that made current alien technologies look prehistoric, nano-adaptive systems that could restructure matter at the molecular level, fusion technologies that could power entire civilizations, adaptive AI systems that could predict and counter threats with impossible precision. But it wasn't just about technological superiority. The transmission showed humanity's deeper qualities: the ability to rebuild, to create, to solve complex problems. Footage of global cooperation, environmental restoration, medical breakthroughs, and technological innovations played out in a carefully curated sequence. "We're showing them who we really are," Dr. Martins said softly. As the final encryption layers were applied, the room fell silent. Each team member understood the gravity of what they were about to do. Captain Jack Rodriguez gave the final command: "Transmit." The universe waited, about to receive a message unlike any it had ever seen before. A warning would echo through the stars. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Zorn Collective's war chamber pulsed with a mixture of rage and desperation. Admiral Krelak stood before a massive holographic display, his exoskeletal form trembling with barely contained fury. The humiliation of their first encounter with humanity burned like molten plasma through the collective consciousness of their entire species. "Prepare the full assault fleet," Krelax commanded, his voice a low, dangerous growl that reverberated through the biometallic command ship. "We will crush these humans and restore the collective's honor." Nearly a third of the Zorn's total military resources began to mobilize. Thousands of ships of various classes, from tiny interceptors to massive world-breaker vessels, assembled in a formation that had conquered hundreds of civilizations. Their technological supremacy was legendary. Their military might was unquestioned. Or so they believed. Deep within the solar system's defensive network, Colonel Emily Hartley watched the approaching fleet with a cold, calculated precision. The massive underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains was a hub of controlled energy, each specialist working with an almost supernatural coordination. "Incoming fleet composition," announced Lieutenant Michael Rodriguez. 3,712 primary vessels, 12,000 support craft. Estimated total combat capability exceeds any previous invasion force in galactic history. Dr. Catherine Bennett studied the approach vectors. "They're making a classic overwhelming force maneuver, typical Imperial expansion strategy. A fatal mistake. The solar system had been transformed into a defensive superstructure that would make any invasion force look like children playing at warfare. Entire asteroid belts had been converted into adaptive defensive platforms. Orbital stations that appeared to be simple communication relays were actually complex weapon systems capable of decimating entire fleets. Activate Phase 1 defensive protocols," Colonel Hartley commanded. The first line of defense was almost invisible: quantum-linked stealth satellites, indistinguishable from cosmic background radiation, began to network together. These weren't traditional weapons, but adaptive intelligence systems that could predict, counter, and neutralize threats before they could even be perceived. Admiral Krelax's tactical displays began to glitch. Information streams became corrupted. Sensor readings showed impossible contradictions. The closer the Zorn fleet approached, the more their technological superiority began to crumble. Preliminary electronic warfare systems engage, reported Dr. Elena Rodriguez. Her team had developed communication disruption technologies that made the Zorn's most advanced encryption look like children's secret codes. The first wave of Zorn assault craft found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to exist in multiple strategic dimensions simultaneously. Weapon systems failed. Navigation computers became unreliable. Communications dissolved into incomprehensible noise. Major Sarah Donovan monitored the adaptive defensive networks. Entire sections of space began to transform. Asteroid fields realigned themselves into complex defensive structures. Quantum-locked energy barriers materialized from seemingly empty space. "They're using our own physics against us," muttered one of the Zorn fleet commanders, a note of growing terror in his voice. The solar system itself had become a weapon. Nano-adaptive defensive systems began to consume the attacking fleet. Microscopic machines, smaller than individual cells, spread through the Zorn vessels, systematically dismantling them from the inside. Entire ships found their molecular structures breaking down, transforming into harmless cosmic dust. Estimated fleet destruction at 47%, Lieutenant David Chen reported. And accelerating. Admiral Krelax watched in horror as his invasion force began to dissolve. This wasn't a battle. This was systematic elimination. The humans weren't just defending. They were demonstrating a level of technological superiority that defied comprehension. Defensive platforms that looked like simple communication satellites revealed themselves as complex weapon systems. Energy projections that could slice through entire battleships emerged from what appeared to be mundane orbital relays. The solar system itself had become a living, thinking defensive network. "Full retreat," Krelax finally commanded, his voice a broken whisper. But retreat was impossible. The final transmission from the Human Defensive Command was brutally simple. Not a declaration of war, not a threat. Simply a statement of fact. "We told you not to provoke us." As the last of the Zorn fleet was systematically eliminated, the solar system returned to its previous state. Peaceful. Calm. As if nothing had happened. Humanity had sent a message that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The battle transcended traditional warfare. It was a conflict fought across multiple dimensions of reality, with technologies so advanced they would have appeared like magic to civilizations of the past. Dr. Amanda Williams stood in the central command hub, her neural interface connecting her directly to the most advanced strategic network ever conceived. Around her, holographic displays showed the conflict in real time, not just visual representations, but complex mathematical models that predicted and counter-predicted every possible military scenario. "Adaptive response systems at maximum efficiency," announced Lieutenant David Chen. The entire human defensive network was more than a collection of weapons. It was a living, thinking organism that could predict, adapt, and neutralize threats before they could even be conceived. The Zorn Collective had committed nearly 70% of their total military resources to this invasion. Thousands of ships, each capable of destroying entire planetary ecosystems, now found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to exist simultaneously in multiple strategic dimensions. Weaponized von Neumann probes emerged from seemingly empty space. These weren't traditional weapons, but self-replicating machines with quantum-linked artificial intelligence cores. Each probe was a thinking, learning entity capable of transforming entire sections of space into defensive or offensive platforms. Major Sarah Donovan monitored the adaptive AI systems. Entire asteroid belts were being consumed and transformed into defensive networks. Quantum-locked weapon systems struck with impossible precision, each shot calculated across multiple potential future scenarios. "They're learning faster than the Zorn can adapt," Dr. Catherine Bennett observed, her voice a mixture of scientific fascination and strategic calculation. The Zorn found themselves fighting an impossible enemy. Their most advanced scanning technologies became useless. Weapon systems designed to obliterate entire civilizations were neutralized before they could be fully deployed. Communication networks dissolved into incomprehensible noise. Adaptive camouflage systems made human defensive platforms virtually invisible. What appeared to be simple communication satellites would suddenly transform into complex weapon systems capable of dismantling entire battleship formations. Energy projections could slice through the most advanced Zorn shields as if they were made of paper. Lieutenant Michael Rodriguez managed the quantum communication networks. The human defensive systems weren't just fighting. They were communicating, learning, adapting with each millisecond of the conflict. Artificial intelligence systems worked in perfect, terrifying synchronization, predicting and countering every possible Zorn tactical move. "Zorn fleet degradation at 63%, he reported, and accelerating. Dr. Elena Rodriguez oversaw the nano-adaptive warfare systems. Microscopic machines, smaller than individual cells, spread through the Zorn vessels, systematically breaking down their molecular structures. Entire ships found themselves dissolving from the inside, transforming into harmless cosmic dust. The battle was less a traditional conflict and more a systematic elimination. Quantum-entangled weapon systems struck targets before those targets could even perceive the incoming threat. Predictive AI algorithms calculated millions of potential engagement scenarios in microseconds, always staying 3 steps ahead of the Zorn's most advanced tactical systems. Colonel Emily Hartley watched the conflict with a calm, almost detached observation. This wasn't just a defensive action. This was a comprehensive demonstration of human technological capabilities. Entire sections of space began to transform. Asteroid fields realigned themselves into complex defensive structures. Quantum-locked energy barriers materialized from seemingly empty space. The solar system itself had become a living, thinking weapon. "We're not just defending," Dr. Bennett muttered. "We're teaching a lesson." The Zorn Collective's most advanced battleships found themselves systematically dismantled. Energy projections that could typically obliterate entire planetary ecosystems were absorbed, redirected, or completely neutralized. Their most sophisticated electronic warfare systems became nothing more than background noise in humanity's comprehensive defensive network. As the conflict progressed, it became clear this was more than a battle. This was a comprehensive demonstration of technological superiority that would echo through the galaxy for generations. The final transmission from Human Defensive Command was simple and devastating. "We warned you not to provoke us." When the conflict concluded, only expanding clouds of rapidly cooling debris remained where the massive Zorn invasion fleet had been. The solar system returned to its previous state, peaceful, calm, as if nothing had happened. Humanity had sent a message that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. They were not to be underestimated. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the transmission from Earth played out. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations watched with a mixture of terror, fascination, and reluctant respect. The holographic display showed the complete annihilation of the Zorn Collective's invasion force, not as a violent spectacle, but as a clinical, almost dispassionate demonstration of technological superiority. Captain Jack Rodriguez stood before the quantum communication array, carefully crafting humanity's final message to the galactic community. Beside him, Dr. Elena Martinez prepared the linguistic algorithms that would ensure the transmission could be understood by every known sentient species. "We are not conquerors," the message began, its tone neither threatening nor apologetic. "We are not seeking empire. We are seeking peaceful coexistence." The transmission was a masterpiece of strategic communication. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was a statement of existence, a clear, unambiguous warning that would echo through the stars for generations. Colonel Emily Hartley reviewed the final draft, her augmented neural interface providing her with a comprehensive analysis of potential interpretations across multiple alien linguistic and cultural frameworks. Every word, every image, every mathematical projection had been carefully selected. The message included comprehensive data packages that demonstrated humanity's capabilities, ecological restoration technologies that could transform entire planetary ecosystems, adaptive medical systems that could cure previously incurable diseases, quantum communication networks that could connect distant civilizations, energy production technologies that could power entire galactic regions without environmental damage. But beneath the technological demonstrations was a deeper message. Humanity was offering a choice: peaceful cooperation or absolute neutralization of any potential threat. Dr. Catherine Bennett had spent months constructing the psychological profile of the transmission. "We're not just communicating," she explained to her colleagues. "We're establishing a new paradigm of interstellar relations." The transmission showed humanity's complexity. Scenes of global cooperation existed alongside demonstrations of military capability. Images of scientific breakthrough were interspersed with glimpses of cultural diversity. Mathematical models showed not just defensive capabilities, but potential paths to mutual growth and understanding. Lieutenant David Chen managed the technical aspects of the transmission. Multiple communication channels were prepared: quantum entanglement networks, hyperspatial relays, and even traditional radio wave transmissions. Redundancy was built into every level of the communication. Representatives from the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. The Zorn Collective, a civilization that had conquered hundreds of worlds, had been completely eliminated in what seemed like moments. Their entire military infrastructure had been systematically dismantled without a single human casualty. Dr. Marcus Chen, the quantum communication specialist, added the final encryption layers. "We're giving them a roadmap," he said softly. "Not of destruction, but of potential." The final portion of the transmission was perhaps the most powerful. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise of what could be achieved through cooperation. Detailed proposals for joint scientific research, potential medical technology exchanges, collaborative ecological restoration projects. Each proposal was backed by comprehensive mathematical models that showed mutual benefit. "We do not seek conflict," the transmission reiterated, "but we will protect ourselves absolutely if threatened." As the transmission concluded, the Galactic Council found itself at a crossroads. Humanity had demonstrated a level of technological capability that defied comprehension. They had shown both the capacity for total destruction and the desire for peaceful cooperation. The message was clear: humanity would be respected, humanity would be understood, but humanity would never be threatened. When the last quantum-encrypted data stream faded, the representatives of hundreds of civilizations were left with a singular, chilling realization. A new era had begun. The universe would never be the same. Epilogue. In the cold darkness between stars, a species had announced its arrival, not with a roar, but with a calculated, devastating whisper.